Um, I'm Laura. I'm in the HR team. I've been with Esri for nearly 5 years. My role is to really find brilliant people to come and join us. So I've interviewed every graduate that's joined us in the last 4 years. So hopefully I can give you some useful tips. And I've been doing sort of head office recruitment for, I've just calculated it, around 18 years now. So hopefully some of it might seem very obvious to you, but hopefully it will all be useful. So I'm going to cover where to look for jobs, application tips, best practice with CVs, and the importance of cover letters, plus a few interview tips and hints as well. So let me try and get to my next slide, which I think it's probably not going to let me do. 2 ticks. Right, I'm going to do it without that. So where can you look for jobs? There's obviously many places, but some of the best places to look are here. So company websites. So if there's companies you're specifically interested in, go and have a look on their websites. Most of them will have a careers page that links from it. Social media these days, so not just LinkedIn, but many companies use Facebook. They even use what was called Twitter and things like that. So, certainly have a look at all of those. You do still have job agencies as well. Whilst they don't always have a high street presence, many of them are available again online. Some of them might want to see you and interview you themselves before they put you forward for jobs, but they're always a good source, and they will be acting on your behalf and putting your CV forward for you. As I said, online, so you've got LinkedIn. Really important place to look as well is Indeed. It's the UK's largest job site. You need to get used to using their search criteria to find the right things for you. But basically, there's also many things that come up in Google for jobs as well. So if you literally Google the jobs you want, you'll get presented with a sort of platform that's been available for the last couple of years. And again, if you get good at searching on it, you can find some really good things there. Career events. So as Molly mentioned, we actually attended the STEM Women sort of Students Careers event last week, which was brilliant. So anything like that you've got the opportunity to attend, I would certainly recommend you do. Networking, if you're looking for something, let your friends, let your family know. You'd be amazed what people can come up with that might be suitable for you. And then there's also the old-fashioned sort of job boards, but actually still really relevant. Lots of people use them, lots of companies use them. So signing yourself up is free. You can sign up to all of them, and then they will then let you know when they've got a job that meets your criteria that comes up. So a few of them are things like Reed and Total Jobs. Find a Job, which is the government site. Lots of companies use that because it's free. You can also go and look on Glassdoor, which is tied in with Indeed now, and any sector specific sites. So we have our jobs on a site called GIS Jobs. Who knew it? And you've also obviously got your university and school employment services that will help you. Um, so the next thing is what's important to think about when making an application. So read the advert carefully. It's really easy to do one-click apply now, but actually, don't waste your time applying for things that you're not really interested in. Um, I would definitely focus on just reading the advert carefully and checking if you meet the essential criteria. You don't need to match everything. People will put a big bullet pointed list of all the sort of things that they might be looking for, and it's really important that's probably their ideal candidate, or even sometimes they don't expect people to come in with all of those things. They're quite happy to train people. So check the essentials. If it says you need to be able to drive, you probably do need to be able to drive. If it says you need to have experience of using GIS software, for example, then that's probably a must. But after that, then you'll find that most of the other things they're listing are kind of the qualities that they might like to see, or optional things. And it's really important that if you're a female, that you're not put off by the list. We tend to rule ourselves out if we don't match everything. So please don't do that. If you think you can do that job and you've got the basic things they're looking for, then why not apply? Um, Check the company out online. Look at their website. Have a little look. Do I like the look of this? do I see people there that I can see myself working with? Have a look on Glassdoor. It's basically, if you've not used it before, it's like TripAdvisor, but for jobs. There are employee reviews there, and also you get people, things like candidates leave reviews, and you can see an overall score for the company. Always take some of it with a pinch of salt. You will always get the disgruntled employee that's left some sort of strange review, but have a look. It gives you a really good overall view of what the company might be like. And if you're unsure about what they want, if there's maybe the advert's really vague, and it doesn't give you much detail, you can always reach out and say, do you have any more information, or is there a job description? You know, you're not wasting their time asking to see if there's any more details they can share with you at that point. And then how to apply. Follow their instructions. They will put in the advert how they want to apply. We ask for all our applications to come in via our website, and there's a really good reason for that, because then it puts you in to basically our recruitment system, and there are some additional questions there to support your application. Lots of companies have recruitment systems. It helps them manage applications. It makes them compliant with GDPR. So always follow what they say. You know, if they say they want a covering letter, please include one. If they say they want you to put something else, always make sure you do it. It's just really important. It just shows you've paid basic attention to what they're asking for. When should you apply? Don't wait for the closing date. Companies often close these things early, and they can if they get lots of applications. So I would always recommend for you to apply as soon as you possibly can. They also might start actually shortlisting and contacting good applicants as they come in. So again, making sure you apply soon is gives you a much better opportunity of being considered. Salary expectations. Sometimes they ask you to put salary expectations, sometimes they don't. Um, if you're not sure what to put, then maybe put a range, and look at similar reported salaries for those jobs. Glassdoor does a really good job of that, and so does Indeed. You can literally find information on what's the average salary for this sort of job. And be realistic. You know, don't say if it's your first job that you want to be earning £80,000. That's probably not going to happen, and they may well rule you out for it. So it's okay to put, I'm not entirely sure, but I envisage that I'd be somewhere in this bracket. If they don't ask for it, then you don't need to include it. So tips for your CV. Um, I would always recommend, if you've got the time, to just take 5 minutes to tailor your CV for each job application. I'm not saying rewrite it, but maybe just that intro paragraph. You might want to just highlight the things that you've got or that you've done that are relevant for that role. Um, as I say, pick out anything that matches the advert. So, you know, if they're saying that we want someone that's really customer focused, maybe think about something that you've done that's relevant to that. Always include a short cover letter on why you want to work for them. It's so important. It is one of the things that will make you stand out. Um, it doesn't need to be War and Peace. It shouldn't just be all the details that are in your CV, but again, saying why you want to work for them and pulling out those important bits of information that make you a great candidate are so important. Um, and put your most recent experience first, you know, rather than at the bottom. Include hobbies and interests. If you've got something really that stands out, or something that you're really passionate about, I wouldn't put just sort of reading and going to the cinema and socializing, unless that's a real passion of yours. You know, if you go to the cinema loads and are really into films, then maybe pop it down. And remember, you are selling yourself to people, so you're selling yourself to your prospective employer. So it's fine to kind of highlight your strengths and your experiences and things like that, and you know, really, so that they can kind of see at a glance who you are and what you can bring to the company. I would avoid fancy formatting and too many colors, and especially those graphs where you're rating your own skills. Anyone can rate themselves as great at all sorts of things. It doesn't really bear any use or sort of for the company that's looking at you. So, and often if you're if you're applying via a recruitment system as well, they sometimes can't cope with fancy formatting. So, if you can submit something on a PDF so that the formatting stays as you want it to, then I would definitely recommend that as well. But again, you know, doing things that are too flash to make yourself stand out you'll probably find that it looks confusing to someone that's not used to how you formatted your CV, and they might just discard you on that basis. And don't make your CV too long. The ideal is 2 pages at the most, so try to keep it to that if you can. So I've already mentioned it, but I'm going to reiterate the importance of a cover letter. It really helps you stand out. On average, and this is quite upsetting, I get, recruiters only look at CVs for less than 30 seconds, sometimes even less than that. Um, so, and that will be enough for them to rule you in or out. So you need to stand out. So having taken that effort to include a cover letter will really help. It will show that you've understood the job and that you've done a little bit of research on the company. So mentioning the company, getting their name right. We are often called Every, who obviously deliver parcels. That's enough for us to think that actually we're not interested in this person. They've not had that attention to detail that we're looking for. And it should also mention, why you want to work for them, what excites you about working for them, and what skills you've got or what experience you've got that would make you good for this role. You don't need to list everything, just those main points. As I said, not a summary of your CV, but highlight the key reasons that they want to consider you. So next, hopefully you get selected, and then you're going forward for an interview. So I think it's really important. The interviews can make people really nervous, but what is an interview? It's just a structured conversation, where one person's mainly asking questions and one person's mainly answering them. But it's important you ask questions too. And why do we do them? So it's to try and find out your potential suitability for a role. And they can be conducted in many ways these days. A lot of companies now do video interviews rather than face-to-face interviews, especially initially. And the types of interviews that people can do are varied. So they can be really structured. They might be very unstructured. So it might sound like just a friendly conversation. If it is, just remember it is still an interview, so you need to be professional. And it might be the way that a company's almost trying to catch you out to put you at ease, and then see how you kind of react. And you can have online assessments. There's many types of interviews. How should you prepare for an interview? So I would always recommend you go back and recheck what you applied for. I get you will be applying for lots of things. So it's important just to remind yourself about that company and that job and what it is you've applied for. Relook at what they're looking for, those main skills, that main experience that they're after, and think again about how you can meet what they're looking for. Try to understand the role. What will you be doing? What does the company do? If you don't completely understand everything, do you know what? That's absolutely fine. Maybe that's going to be some of the questions that you're going to ask them. And do some research, as I said, on the company website, on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor. See what you can find out. You might even find some questions that they normally ask at interview. Anything you can do to prepare yourself will really help. And then you can prepare for standard interview questions. Everyone asks similar questions. They just might ask them in a slightly different way. And as I said, also prepare some questions to ask them. So some standard interview questions. As I say, they might phrase them slightly differently, but most interviews will include some of these. So tell me about yourself. So that's often an opening question. They won't want war and peace, but a little summary about what you've done to date, maybe some of your achievements, what you like to do in your spare time. Just a bit of brief detail is often what they're after. Another question I'll often ask is, what are your strengths? So most people are often are after you working in a team, that you're quite organized, that you have attention to detail, but pick that things that are true that you actually, feel that you could demonstrate and that also would be useful in the role that you've applied for. Often companies will ask you, what are your weaknesses or what are your development areas? This is a horrible question. I get it. So it's worth you thinking about it beforehand. And what they're after is someone that's obviously got that emotional intelligence to understand that they're not perfect, because no one is, but also, you need to pick something that's not too terrible, that wouldn't absolutely be the reason that they couldn't employ you. So sometimes you could say something like, I used to struggle with prioritizing things when I've got lots on, but actually I've used some time management techniques, or I use this to organize myself. So again, thinking about something in advance will help you come up with an answer to that question, that shows that you're aware of, maybe areas you've got to develop and how you can do it. They might ask what motivates you, or what would make you want to succeed in a company or a role. So thinking about of examples where you've helped out customers, or where you've completed a task to a great standard is always useful. And they may ask you why you've applied. So why do you want to work for us? What makes this a good job? So you need to think about that. Sometimes people ask very structured questions. These are often called competency or situational questions. Really, what they are, they're asking you to tell them a time that you did something. You can look this up online as well, but some examples of questions that are likely to be asked are when you've dealt with a difficult person or a challenging situation, when you've made a mistake. So obviously, again, try not to think of something earth-shattering, but think of an example where you can actually show what you learned from it, because actually everybody makes mistakes. It's what's important is that we learn from them and develop. Tell me about a time you had to adapt your communication style, maybe to achieve an outcome, or to work better with someone. And tell me about a time you worked in a team. So, really importantly, remember to tell people about what you did in the team and how you made an impact, rather than generally just talking about the team. And maybe tell me about a time when you went out of your way to achieve an outcome or overcome a challenge. Again, they'll be phrased in different ways, but having thought about these sort of questions can really help you when you do come to an interview. Um, and then there isn't a technique which is called a STAR technique. You can Google it and you will find loads of helpful things. But basically, when someone's asking you a question, you're telling them the situation, you're telling them what the end goal was, and then really importantly, you're telling them what you did and what the outcome was. So how you made a difference, what happened in the end. And it's really important. People often forget that whole end bit. So just doing a bit of research on how to answer questions will really help you. I would always recommend you try not to waffle, try to keep it on point. Um, don't make your answers too long, but do make sure you include all the important bits. A good interviewer can always ask you, um, can you give me a bit more detail on that, if you like, rather than you giving them way too much detail and maybe wandering a bit off point. Now, questions you should ask. Really important that you ask some questions. It shows that you care. It shows that you've been listening. It shows that, it really helps demonstrate that you want to work for them. So, as I mentioned before, if there's something job specific or company specific that hasn't been answered during the interview, or that you couldn't find really easily online, ask that. It's a great time to find out more. You can ask, obviously, about career paths and prospects. It's really important. So you just need to make sure you kind of phrase it in a way that it doesn't sound like you want to get immediately promoted. Most companies will want you to get used to a role and working for them, and then they should have good career paths for all their employees. Why not ask them why they like working there? It's a great question. And most people love talking about themselves, so I'm sure that they'll be happy to answer it. And then importantly, towards the end of the interview, if they haven't already told you, then ask what the next steps are. When are you likely to hear from them? Is there another interview stage? It's really important. Sometimes people might need a couple of weeks before they get back to you, because maybe they're on holiday, maybe they've got other people they're interviewing. But as long as you know when to expect to hear from them, then that's a really good um, way forward, and it means you won't be worrying that you've not been successful when actually you're still very much being considered. Things that I would avoid asking is things like number of days holiday, sick pay. That may well be in the advert anyway. So if it is, don't ask it again. You can ask that at the point of being maybe offered a role, or at very much the final stages. So the day before an interview, I would always recommend you double check all the details. It sounds mad, but we've had people turning up an hour late because they thought it was at 9, but now it was actually at 10. So, worth double checking all the details, who you're meeting, make a note of it, make sure you know where you need to go. If you're not sure, if you have a panic, ring up, ask reception, where do I park? How do I come in? Do I need to press a buzzer? They'll be happy to help you. Check your journey again and how long it's going to take you to get there, and plan in a bit of extra time. Do you know what? You're far better off to be sitting around the corner having a coffee than being late and panicking. Um, and I would always recommend that going into the actual building and the place around 15 minutes early. If you're much earlier than that, then reception might send a message to the person and they're actually busy, and then they're panicking that you're waiting too long. So about 15 minutes beforehand is plenty of time. On the day, I would always say dress smart. Smart these days is very different. It doesn't necessarily mean suit or tie, a suit and tie. They may well give you some information before the interview on dress code and things, so I would definitely check that. You can also have a look and see what people are wearing online at that sort of company. But I would always err on the smarter side. You'll feel far more comfortable if you're there fairly smart, and the interview is a bit more casual than you turning up looking really casual and then they're really formally dressed. Most places wouldn't accept ripped jeans, dirty trainers. We're quite happy for people to turn up in casual, smart casual clothing. That's absolutely fine. That suits our culture down to a ground. But you do need to make look like you've made an effort. And even for video interviews, maybe making sure that you look smart, you've got a decent background behind you, or fuzz it out like I have, because people always plant things behind me at my home. But yeah, make sure that you've look like you've made an effort. Take the interview details with you so you know who you're seeing. And it's fine for you to bring some brief notes with you if you think that they're going to help you. Why not? Um, Try to control your nerves. Good interviewers should be trying to make you feel relaxed so that they're going to get to know the real you, and feel confident. You'll have already made it to the top of a very long list of applicants if you've got an interview. Be polite, shake hands if the interview extends hands. Not everyone shakes hands these days, so kind of play it by ear. And be yourself, listen, don't interrupt. And just remember to be nice. So, one of the important things is never speak poorly about um, previous colleagues or people that you might have studied with. It's always better to err on the side of caution and be nice. So what if it starts to go wrong? And it does sometimes. If you're going to be late, call them. They might well be able to reschedule. Let them know why. My greatest example is my husband was 7 hours late for his interview because of terrible snow, but he still got there. He kept the interviewers advised the whole way through, and they gave him the job. I'm not advocating being 7 hours late for an interview, by the way. But most interviewers will be understanding, and if they can accommodate you being a little late, then they obviously will. If you don't understand a question they're asking you, just ask them to repeat it or phrase it a bit differently. Again, good interviewers are not there to catch you out, and they want to get as much information from you as they possibly can. If you're worried you're going to have brain fog when you get in there and can't think of anything, then as I say, bringing a few notes or maybe just a couple of lines to remind you about a difficult situation you dealt with. Do you know what? That's absolutely fine. Don't read from notes though. But if you go, oh, I just need to just quickly refer to my notes, is that okay? People will be fine with that. And if you're really nervous, tell them and they will try and put you at ease. It's really important that you're as relaxed as possible. So hopefully, after all this, you are now interview ready. You'll have been done your research, you're enthusiastic, you're attentive and listening, dressed for success. But as I say, you don't need to always wear a suit. And you're going to be yourself because that's what people want to see. They want to get to know you better. And that's the reason that they've invited you to an interview. So hopefully that's useful. I believe now we're going to go over to the questions. Um, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm one of only two, I believe, Laura Isoms in the UK. So look me up. I'm not the one that's in Daventry. Who knew it? So look me up. Happy to link with you.